I am so excited we're doing this. I'm sad that we're not in person, so we can't nonfiction-ish have our dinner together, but we can
I
have our
know.
drinks
I
together.
know. I've had so many conversations with you on the phone, but never in person. So, like,
I
what a
know.
bummer. One
What are
day.
you drinking?
I'm just drinking some tea. It's a lavender tea. Yeah,
Oh,
this is
that's
a
more
little
exciting than
cup,
me.
an old
I'm like
cup I
hot
have.
water and lemon.
Hot water lemon. That's a good choice.
It's very Indian. Okay. So let's do like a quick, before we get into it, just like a get to know you.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you 3 words. If you could go
Okay.
back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what are the 3 words that you would tell them? It's a short and sweet
Um,
little sentence.
if I could go back and talk to my 18-year-old self, what are the 3 words that I could say to them? I would say patience. I would say just love yourself. That counts as one. And don't look for validation from anyone else.
That was
I
more
mean,
than
those are
three
more
words,
than
but
3
I will.
words. Is this
I'll
advice
take
I'm
it.
supposed to be giving myself or like words to
To
describe
you,
myself?
like, I go back and when you think of like when you were at that age, I don't know. I would say like, yeah, mine's 4 words. Like, it'll be okay. Actually, it'll be okay. Okay, so there's that.
Yeah, like
Um,
self-love, I think is a big one. I think that would
which
be
one?
self-love, you know?
Yeah, I think, and
Yeah.
especially now, oh my God, to be an 18-year-old today, I don't know, self love, big time.
Yeah, I think they have it pretty tough, actually. What a weird and wild time to grow up.
Yeah. And I actually saw, I don't know if you saw this today. It was Julia Roberts posted something, and it was just
No.
like a picture of her and Emma Roberts, like Sunday afternoon, like playing cards. And she's like, the amount of mean comments I got on just this, like, very simple, I was just happy about this morning, saying, you're so old and so ugly and you look so bad. And she's like, my feelings were hurt. And I'm a 50-year-old and my feelings were hurt. So she's like, imagine being 15 years old. I'm like, it's
Wow,
true.
that's really sad. Yeah, it's such a scary time to reveal yourself. And yet we still have so many opportunities to reveal ourselves. And I think our versions of what is real is
Mm-hmm.
so skewed because
So skewed.
of, AI, because of filters, because of social media, because of like all the Botox and all the fillers that we can actually do to make ourselves look like what we see
Yeah.
on like Instagram. It's just such a weird time.
I know, it's
Yeah, that's
crazy. And it's
awful.
like we're more connected now because of all of this, but it actually makes us more disconnected.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about a lot of the show, we talk about Asian representation. So, um, what is something like a specific topic, or maybe you have a couple that you really wish that we would actually talk about more in our Asian communities?
Um, I think the thing that I've been thinking about a lot for the last little while is um, we talk a lot about, representation, about how to do it properly. And I do believe that the pendulum needs to swing one way in order for it to come back into the middle. But I think what we're losing just as artists is the ability to laugh at ourselves. I think sometimes what we're losing is artistry in
Mm-hmm.
our like intention to be so correct and so
Yeah,
woke that there's a lot that's being lost. And
yeah.
and so that's kind of on my mind a lot. And then also just sort of the idea of, I remember way back when I first started acting, like the desire was just to play a stereotypical
Mm-hmm.
role, right? That was the desire. And now it seems like in some ways we're getting those opportunities within the industry, but then what's happening is that our own culture, like the people from our own culture, are very set on ensuring that everything is sort of so perfectly cast
Mm-hmm.
that we forget that, like, we're almost putting ourselves in our own in a box. It's not
Yes.
really the box is not being created from necessarily the industry anymore, or the non-South
It's from
Asians. It's
within our
actually
community.
within our community, where it's like, well, she's a Muslim, so she can only play Muslims, or
Yeah.
this character is um, Sikh Punjabi, so it has to be played by a Sikh Punjabi, which is all well and good. And I think that is always a place where we should start and where the discussion should start. But then we start to forget that we're also more than our culture, that I
Mm-hmm.
am a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a lover, I'm, you know, I enjoy gardening, like all those things that
Mm-hmm.
make me who I am and make a
Yeah.
character who they are, that you can relate to a character on those levels as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just because I'm Sikh Punjabi, so I'm playing a Sikh Punjabi. Because then you also
Yeah.
start to wonder, well, what about those people who are like, half Goan and half,
Mm-hmm.
Punjabi, or half Bengali, or half, or whatever. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
sort of a thread of a lot of different things, and it really negates that.
Yeah. Well, I think about our kids like as more and more mixing of cultures. Like, where would my kids fit in? Because my kids are half Indian, and then they're a quarter West Indian and a quarter Spanish. And where does that leave them? Right?
Exactly. My kids are the same way. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a lot of little halfers and just sort of like roaming around. And they also, I think we have more in common than we realize, and I
Yes.
think we should maybe start there.
And
Sure.
so, for anyone who isn't familiar with this, give us a little bit about, like, just like a quick little
A
tease.
little,
What is this show all about?
yeah. So Sight Unseen is a hour-long procedural about a woman who is losing her vision, and she's a cop. Um, and as she is wrestling with this new reality that she's finding herself in, she ends up connecting with a woman 3,000 miles away who is the voice of an app that can see for her. So together, they're able to not only help Tess navigate her life, but also
Mm-hmm.
solve crimes. And so I play Sunny Patel, and I'm 3,000 miles away, and I'm in New York, and I'm in this beautiful penthouse. But I'm a bit of a caged bird because my
Mm-hmm.
character is agoraphobic, and so um, Tess needs me as much as I need her, as much as Sunny needs her, because Sunny can't leave the house, and so she lives
Mm-hmm.
vicariously through Tess.
Mm-hmm. And so you guys shot this. You were never actually in the same space shooting. So
No.
what is that like?
um, it was a big experiment. We didn't really know how it was going to work, but I did a lot of in the first couple of episodes. I did a lot of off-camera lines for Dolly
Mhm.
Lewis, who plays Tess. Um, And so we bonded in that way, and I was able to kind of really get a sense of how she was playing the character, of what she could see. So by the time we got to my stuff,
Mhm.
I felt I had already sort of lived all of those moments, and
Yeah.
it became really easy to kind of, like, perform. But it felt like a one woman show, to be honest. It felt like I was given a lot of sort of free reign with the space and the apartment, and to just play. Like, who are we in our most private lives when we don't think anyone's watching, when we have
Yeah.
nobody else there? We're weirdos. We're human. We're weirdos, and so
Yeah.
I played with that a little bit, and that was really fun.
That's awesome. In Sight Unseen, you're in your acting role, but then you're also a writer, a director. You're doing all of the things. I think of Donkey Head, where you're doing it all. Is there one role that, like, that's your baby? Like, that's what you really love to do the most?
I don't think so. I think they all feed me in different ways. They're all like, I feel so lucky to be able to do all of the things, but I also find that
And
all
so
of the things.
talented.
Thank you. Um, I think all of the things are also really hard. Acting. I love acting so much, but the industry is hard, and certain roles are harder than others. And I love writing. I think that's just in some ways probably where I'm the most honest,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's just myself. But I find it incredibly difficult. And I
Mm-hmm.
love to direct. I love to collaborate with other actors, and I love to find sort of like those magical little moments. But I also find that it's really challenging. Like, some projects are just more challenging than other projects. So I don't know. I think it all just kind of keeps me on my toes, and I like the variety of being able to do all of it.
Yeah. And all of it. So you have Sight Unseen, but we also have Allegiance. And in
Hmm.
Allegiance, you are the director and story editor as well, right?
Yeah, I was one of the story editors. So I was in the writer's room for the first like 8 weeks when they first started creating the show. And that was really interesting because I'd never done that before. And it was just cool to be a part of like sort of like the brain of the show as it's developing. And then I just directed uh, episode 109. So it's a 10 episode show. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I got to do 109, which was really fantastic. And it was a really special story because it takes place in Surrey. It's about a Sikh Punjabi woman. I've lived in Surrey. I'm Sikh Punjabi. And so it was really cool to kind of get a sense of, to just be able to see Surrey for Surrey. And to see this lead of the show, which, it's weird, right? It's 2024 and it's still just such a shocking thing that the lead is, a woman of color. But here we
No.
go. She's a woman of color. Um, but then to be able to make her Canadian, she's like fully Canadian.
Hmm.
And she's also Sikh Punjabi. And so what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. I want to also talk about being in the entertainment industry and being in LA now, because, like you said, you're from BC originally, and now you've made the move there. Has it made things easier, more difficult? Like, what has that transition been like?
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming back and forth between Canada and LA probably for the last like 12 years, I think. And um, part of the reason why I came here was because I mean, I've had a really like I've had a very nice career in Canada, and I've been able to do a
Mhm.
lot of really cool things and be a part of lots of different shows and be a regular on different shows. And I think I just wanted to stretch my wings a little bit more, to have more challenges, um, and to give myself an opportunity to also grow, because I
Mhm.
think Canada, I mean, for better and for worse, and there are really good like things about this, but it doesn't have a star system. So when you are a series regular on a show and the show finishes, you're starting from scratch again, and
Mhm.
it gets a bit tiring. And so it's nice to be able to be somewhere where there possibility to perhaps like level up
Mhm.
and to build on what you did last is
Mhm.
there. That being said, I feel like LA has been really humbling for me. And it's a hard city. There's like
Mhm.
a million people here who are so good at what they do. And so it's been more of an insight into who I am as an artist, into really kind of getting very specific about why I'm doing this
Mhm.
and what the purpose is and why I want to continue doing this. And for a while, I didn't want to continue doing it. Like, I've quit many times in my head. And so I've really had to, like, it's been very humbling, but I think as an artist, incredibly healthy to just be
Yeah.
here and to yeah, just have to like, you're constantly working to a place where it's like, I'm not constantly working. But then I think it's more than that. I think it's also this idea where um, I've had to really sort of, I've really had to just sort of ask myself, like, why am I doing this? You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of get into a rhythm and being like, okay, the next thing I want to do is like, is to like, book a series in LA. And the next thing I want to do is to book like, this or to win this.
Mhm.
Um, and I think having those milestones are really great. But I think for me, what it's done is that it's made it less about the external and more about the internal, and to have to ask myself, what kind of artist are you? And if you're not working, what are you going to do? Why do you still want to do this? Do you still have stories you want to tell? What is important to you? And
Mhm.
so I think that's kind of where Donkey Head was born, was because I was frustrated, and because I wanted to be a lead on something and I hadn't had
Mhm.
that opportunity. I wanted to feel what it was like to carry a movie and see if I could do it. No one was
And
giving me that
you did
opportunity.
it.
So and so I did it. Yeah. Yeah.
In such a successful way.
Oh my God! A woman your age should not be living at home with her father.
Where the hell were you guys the last 7 years?
I will not be bamboozled.
No one is bamboozling you.
Choice of language. This particular situation is not as uncommon as you might think.
What?
And I think, having been an actor in this industry for as long as I have, I just see such a need to really just open up that space for stories from other people, from more diverse backgrounds. I think it's just
Mhm.
as simple as that. Like, I want to see more people of color. I want to see more women. I want to see more aging women. Um, I want all of that. And I think we need all of that. I think people are hungry for it,
Mhm.
and I think there is such, I think it doesn't, what I learned from Donkey Head is that it doesn't matter what your background is, if the truth is the truth. And if you can connect to the truth as an artist, other
Mhm.
people will see it, and they may not always like it, but you can't help but be like, oh, that's the same with me. That's how I
Mhm.
feel. And there's something really powerful about that, about being able to bring people together, essentially.
Julie Black a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking
Awesome.
about allyship. And I said, I'm very open to talking about the flaws within our culture. And yes, we do have anti Blackness. It is big in Asian, South Asian culture, and we need to just sort of we need to address that head on, and we can't unless we actually talk about it and acknowledge it. And so I also feel like within our culture we need to have more allyship. And do what are some of the ways, and especially to me, art can be like the Trojan horse that brings everything down, because people really connect with art in that powerful way. So as a person in the arts, how do you think we can be better allies, not only within our communities but also outside of our communities? Because I think it's all of our responsibilities.
It's a good question. I think my sister is sort of in this space. She works within this space, and she was talking about, I think the word she used was sponsorship. Like, as allies, it's not enough anymore to just be a
Mm-hmm.
mentor to somebody, to give them advice. But you actually have to sponsor them. You actually have to say, hey, listen, I'm going to introduce you to my boss, because my boss is looking for somebody to fit this position, and I'm going to bring you two together. Or
Mm-hmm.
trying to find ways that you can actually bring somebody into the fold. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that goes much further than what it is to be a mentor, which is to give a bunch of advice to somebody. I've been a mentor a number of times, for BIPOC as well as like white folk, and I've never felt like it's been very helpful. I wish it was. I mean, I've given advice, but it's just, you can only do so much. And especially
Yeah.
within this world of creativity, like, there's no linear path.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sponsorship is one way. And I think you're right. I think it's about telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And I think it's also recognizing that we do have different life experiences. Like, I even find that within our culture, brown men have a very different perspective than brown women, you know? And I think that's really important for us to realize and to bring voice to. And it's not bad, it's not good, it's just is what it is. And so
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the taste of what somebody might want to see on a show or in a film, we do have to recognize that because it's coming with their own
Yeah.
filter.
Yeah.
One of the characters in Donkey Head ends up being gay, and he wears a turban.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was, showing the script to various people, I showed it to a friend of mine who wears a turban and is very, like, he's atheist. Like, he's very secular and just sort of the way he goes about his life, but he wears a turban. And for him, he was like, you should not, like, that should not be a part of the story, And I've had that reaction a few different times from various men when it came to the script,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it was interesting to me. It was kind of like, oh, I see. Like, that is uncomfortable for you. Or, Mona's a little too much. Like, she's just like not a likable character. And it's like, well, why does she have to be likable? Where does that come from? Versus like women were very much like, oh, that's awesome. She feels so real and she felt so like, flawed. So I think the more conversations we have about this and the more we start recognizing it within ourselves when we're just, reading a script or watching a movie, it's like, why does that resonate? And why does this make me feel incredibly uncomfortable?
Yeah.
You produce your opportunities, you just make those opportunities.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that. And like my husband sometimes will be like, why are you doing all of these things? And I said, well, if nobody is doing them, I'm just going to do it because it fills my heart and it makes me feel good. And I feel like I need to tell these stories and I want to have a conversation with you. And if mainstream media doesn't want to give me this platform, I will just create it myself.
Yeah. And it's so amazing, right? Like, I think sometimes mainstream media is one of the last to sort of jump on board and to recognize when something is interesting or good or whatever. Like, there's a lot of fear there, right? Because it's so based on who's going to buy advertising versus like when you actually put something out there that really kind of that you connect to on a soul level, which I feel for me is always kind of my North Star, is like, what am I meant to do here? And what am I doing simply out of ego? But if you're able to kind of connect to like kind of be soul led and really connect to something on that level, I just feel like magic happens. And it may not always go the way you intended it to go, but something comes out of it and opportunities do grow and you're creating some kind of garden,
Yeah.
And you see others doing the same, and then something might shift and you'll see someone just get the most magical opportunity or be able to tell the most magical story. So that is kind of part of what's so special about it.
I love that. Okay, let's end on that wonderful note. Thank you. I love this conversation. I wish we could have had it in person, but hopefully we will see each other in real life one day soon.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Meera.